All right, everyone, get ready, because today we're taking a deep dive into a field that's pretty high-flying, so to speak. We're talking airspace management, and specifically how it all works in the busy skies over Europe.
A lot of people, they hear airspace and think, oh, like air traffic control.
Right, like those folks in the tower with the headphones.
Yeah, but it's actually way more than that, and the stuff you dug up from RoleCatcher.com that really gets into the nitty-gritty.
It does. It paints this picture of Europe's airspace being like this giant, constantly moving puzzle, right? And airspace managers, they're the ones making sure all the pieces fit together safely, efficiently, all that.
It's a huge responsibility when you think about it. I
Yeah.
mean, thousands of planes, different airlines, all those different destinations, and then you've got weather to factor in.
Oh, absolutely. Can't forget about the weather. And RoleCatcher, they really emphasize how airspace managers, they aren't just preventing collisions, which is obviously huge, but they're also focused on this whole optimization thing.
Yeah, like squeezing every last bit of efficiency out of the system.
Exactly. Minimizing delays, fuel consumption, all while adapting to whatever's thrown at them. That takes a special kind of skill set, wouldn't you say?
For sure. You've got to be a data whiz, a bit of a strategist, and a diplomat all rolled into one. And from what I gathered on RoleCatcher, you need a pretty high tolerance for stress, too. No 2 days are the same in that job.
Not for the faint of heart, it seems. They had a line in there about airspace managers basically being the unsung heroes of keeping the skies safe and efficient. So let's unmask these heroes a bit, shall we? What does an airspace manager actually do all day?
Well, think of it this way.
Huh.
If air traffic controllers are like the orchestra musicians, focused on their individual instruments and the notes right in front of them.
I like that analogy. Keep going.
Airspace managers, they're the conductors, right?
Oh.
They're the ones orchestrating the entire symphony of flights across the continent. They're thinking big picture, long term.
Okay, I'm with you. So they're designing these aerial highways, essentially, making sure everything flows smoothly.
Exactly. They're looking at how to optimize flight paths,
Yeah.
minimize those pesky delays we all hate, and make sure that everything runs like a well-oiled machine. Or, I guess, a well-oiled airplane in this case.
And all while making sure that safety remains the top priority. RoleCatcher uses this phrase, managing complexity, which I think really sums it up, don't you think?
Totally. And a big part of that complexity comes from the sheer number of stakeholders involved.
Right. It's not just about the planes and the pilots.
Nope. You've got airlines, airports, government agencies, even international organizations, all with their own priorities, and sometimes those priorities clash.
So you need someone who can not only crunch the numbers and wrangle the tech, but also smooth talk a room full of stressed out airline execs.
100%. That's why RoleCatcher talks about diplomacy being a key skill for anyone looking to climb the ranks in airspace management.
It sounds like they need the patience of a saint, the nerves of a surgeon, and the communication skills of, well...
A diplomat.
Exactly. So it's not just smooth talking, right? They also need a deep understanding of all the technology involved in keeping those flights on track. I mean, RoleCatcher talks about how AI and machine learning are changing the game when it comes to airspace management.
Yeah, it's gone way beyond radar blips on a screen. We're talking serious algorithms now.
And those algorithms, what are they actually doing? It's all a bit sci-fi to me sometimes.
Well, think of it like this. Imagine you've got this massive jigsaw puzzle, right? But the pieces are always moving. That's kind of what managing airspace is like. Thousands of flights, all on different trajectories, with constantly changing variables like weather or unexpected events.
Oh, I see. And the AI helps make sense of all that chaos.
Exactly. AI can analyze all that data. I mean, mountains of data way faster than any human could. And then it can start to predict potential conflicts, come up with the most efficient routes. It's like having a co-pilot with a superpowered brain.
Wow. So it's not about replacing human airspace managers, but giving them these amazing tools to make their jobs even, well, more manageable.
Absolutely. It's all about making the system smarter and more efficient. Like RoleCatcher mentions that thing with cascading delays. You know, when one little hiccup snowballs into a whole mess of delays across the entire network.
Oh, tell me about it. I swear I've aged a year waiting for delayed flights.
Right. But AI can actually model those scenarios. It looks at historical data, weather patterns, all that stuff, and it can predict those delays with, honestly, scary accuracy.
So they can actually get ahead of the problem instead of just reacting to it after it's already messed up everyone's travel plans.
Exactly. And that's a game changer for everyone. Airlines save money, passengers get where they need to be on time.
Now that's the kind of AI I can get behind. But RoleCatcher also makes it clear that it's not all just ones and zeros, right? The human element, that's still crucial in this line of work.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And this is something that often gets overlooked. You can have the most sophisticated AI in the world, but if you can't communicate effectively, if you can't understand the needs and perspectives of all those stakeholders we talked about earlier, you're not going to get very far.
So you're not just an airspace manager, you're a bit of a what? A
You
negotiator?
Totally. A mediator, a translator, even a therapist sometimes. Imagine having to tell an airline CEO that their flight, packed with hundreds of people, has to be delayed because of AI-predicted weather patterns over the Atlantic.
Oh, I can imagine that conversation getting a little heated.
Exactly. You need to be able to explain complex technical concepts in a way that makes sense to people who might not be engineers or data scientists.
Yeah.
You need to stay calm under pressure, build consensus, and find solutions that work for everyone involved.
It's a people job as much as it is a tech job, it sounds like. And that career path, it's not exactly a straight line either, is it? RoleCatcher had a whole section on that.
It's more like a choose-your-own-adventure novel.
Hmm.
You might start out as an assistant, maybe in a regional center. You learn the ropes, you get some experience under your belt. Then you could specialize, maybe in something like airspace design or traffic flow management. There are tons of different paths you can take.
So you could be up in the control tower one day, then hunched over algorithms the next.
Exactly. And the learning never really stops. New technologies are always popping up. Regulations are constantly evolving. The airspace itself is getting more crowded.
RoleCatcher calls it continuous learning, right? Sounds like you've got to have a real thirst for knowledge to stay ahead of the curve in this field.
For sure. But that's part of what makes it so exciting. It's never boring.
And speaking of exciting, let's talk about actually landing a job in this competitive field. RoleCatcher gives a lot of advice for aspiring airspace managers, starting with getting some hands-on experience.
Yeah, internships. Even if they're unpaid, those can be golden tickets.
Because it's not just about what you know, it's about proving that you can handle the pressure cooker of a real-world control center.
Absolutely. And networking. Can't stress that enough. Going to conferences, joining professional organizations, connecting with people already in the field.
Because sometimes it's not just what you know, but who you know, right? At least to get your foot in the door.
Exactly. Networking can open up doors you wouldn't even know existed. And RoleCatcher, they actually have these AI-powered tools to help with this.
Really? Like, what? AI matchmakers for aspiring airspace managers.
Sort of. Their platform can connect you with potential mentors, people who've already walked the path you're interested in. It's pretty cool, actually.
So AI isn't just changing how airspace is managed, it's changing how people get into the field in the first place. That's fascinating.
Yeah, technology touches every aspect of this field, really. And RoleCatcher doesn't shy away from the tough stuff either, like those nail-biting interview questions they prepped us for.
Oh yeah, those were something else. One that stuck with me was, how would you prioritize airspace resources during a major weather event? Like, talk about a high-pressure scenario. Where do you even start with something like that?
You know, it's funny, we think of air travel as so futuristic, right? But when you really break it down, it's kind of amazing how much of it relies on these invisible lines in the sky, these fixed routes that planes have been following for decades.
It's true. It's like we took this brand new way to travel and squeezed it into the same old system of roads and highways.
Exactly. But RoleCatcher, they hinted at something that could totally revolutionize all that. They call it free route airspace.
Ah, yeah. It's a pretty hot topic in the world of airspace management these days. And for good reason.
Okay, so what is it exactly? Like, are we talking about planes just zipping around willy-nilly up there?
Not quite willy-nilly. Safety is still the top priority, of course. But imagine this. Instead of those fixed routes, those aerial highways we talked about, imagine if planes could just fly the most direct route possible.
Like off-roading, but for planes. Kinda. But with, sophisticated air traffic management systems making sure everything stays safe. The idea is that with free route airspace, planes could take advantage of real-time conditions, maybe adjusting their altitude to catch a tailwind or flying around a patch of turbulence.
Okay, so less like off-roading, more like having a really good GPS that tells you, hey, there's traffic up ahead, why don't we take this shortcut?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the benefits are huge. We're talking about shorter flight times, less fuel consumption, fewer emissions. It's a win-win for everyone, really. Well, except maybe for those who sell those tiny bottles of water on board.
Hey, a win for the environment is a win in my book. But this free route airspace thing, it's not exactly a reality yet, is it? RoleCatcher made it sound like it's still in the experimental phase.
Yeah, it's still early days. There are a lot of challenges to work out, both on the technological front and in terms of getting everyone on board, so to speak.
I bet. Because you need some serious coordination, right? I mean, it's not like one country can just decide to let planes go all free range in their airspace.
Exactly. This is where the whole international cooperation thing comes in, because you've got to make sure everyone is using the same systems, the same standards. Otherwise, it could create more problems than it solves.
So for aspiring airspace managers, this is like the next frontier, the big challenge they might be tackling in their careers.
It's definitely one to watch. And this is where those skills we talked about earlier, the diplomacy, the ability to think on your feet, to adapt to new technologies, that's all going to be crucial in making free route airspace a reality.
It's a fascinating time to be in this field, that's for sure. And, after spending this episode with you diving deep into this world, I have to say I have a newfound appreciation for the folks who keep those skies humming.
Me too. It's easy to take it for granted when you're up there at 30,000 feet sipping your ginger ale, but there's a whole lot of hard work and expertise that goes into making that flight smooth and safe.
It's like a giant invisible ballet, isn't it? And those airspace managers, they're the choreographers, the conductors, making sure everything flows seamlessly. So, to all you aspiring airspace managers out there, keep reaching for those skies. The future of air travel, it's looking pretty exciting from where we're sitting. And for everyone else, next time you're on a plane, take a moment to appreciate the unsung heroes who got you there. Safe travels, everyone, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.